God has been challenging us to do is that we need to embrace the apostolic. Because you see, a prophetic move announces, declares, discerns, and says this is what God is going to do, that's what's going to happen. But it takes a different grace to then take the proclamations, the announcement, the prophecies, and say, now let's build. And I think in the prayer movement, we've been lacking the apostolic side. Yes. In the prayer movement, we've been having a strong prophetic understanding. We discern, we know territorial issues. We are investigators. We can tell you what's going on in a region. But after we've announced what's going on, we need to partner with apostolic intercessors. Apostolic intercessors, those who have a burden for prayer, but also have the ability to build. And every region needs a different building plan, because no plan of building is the same everywhere, unless you are building RDP houses, which all looks the same, but there's usually no plan. So God will give, so as much, and this has been the controversy between the prophetic. We found that the prayer movement has even raised ordinary believers. In the majority, the prayer movement consists of ordinary believers with no titles. They are just intercessors burdened with prayer, called by God to pray, to travail. They are Hannahs, they are Abigails, they are Mordecais. They are praying, they are standing in the gate, they are watching what's happening at the gate, they are making announcements, but they are not building anything. They are just making announcement. I mean, Mordecai went to Esther and said, if you don't do anything about this thing, you and your family, you see, we make threats. Prophets make threats. They tell you, if you don't repent, this is going to happen. But they themselves do not have the technology to do. It took an Esther, though she was a woman, but she operated in an apostolic grace, because the position where God had put her was a position of kingship and rulership. And so she was able to then go into the presence of the king, also in that prophetic role of intercession for the nation before the king. And the king is the one who ultimately made the decision. So we must recognize the authority that kings have, that as much as prophetic people have got the ability to see, to hear, and to make recommendations, it will take kingly anointings to implement. And so God must raise us an apostolic company in the prophetic movement, in the prayer movement. Apostolic company, those people who are able not only to see and hear, but they are able to implement and put in place structures. And so we see here an ideal state, where the prophet says, and on this highway, God will build a highway of holiness. And prophetically, it speaks, the ideal state really speaks of Christ. Because, it goes into Isaiah. When you read also Isaiah 25, where it says, there shall be no more tears on this mountain of the Lord. No death, no tears, no what. That's an ideal state of speaking of spiritual inheritance. So many a times prophets speak at a spiritual realm. They speak spiritual language. Their message is encoded, and it needs to be decoded by apostolic people who know how to take the burden, because prophets can have a burden and cry, and we need apostolic leaders who knows how to take the cry, decode the tears and the burden and the weeping, and turn it into structures that can work. And that's why